Good morning, this is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 5 and episode number, take a look, 793 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Always 100% Canadian. Today, recording day is Friday, November 21st. 2025, and I'm guessing it's a really great day here at the Beaver Lodge because I should be able to see sun and stuff out the window, and all I see is stuff that's really, really dark. So I'm guessing the sun did not come out to play today. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And not with me, as usual, as my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. However, we do have a growl for you today, so we will have some Grizzly time on the show, which makes me very happy, and I'm pretty sure makes you happy too. I'm your host. No, I actually said that already. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Have a bit, no particular team, just a theme, a grab bag of news today. Of course, part of that has to do with the fact of how little time I had to prepare this particular show today. So sometimes when I have, sometimes it's a grab bag because there's just no theme, but sometimes it's a grab bag of news because that's all I got for you today. But I have a good reason, and I will tell you. How is your mental health today, kids and cubs? Mine is fantastic. Um, because I know you're all waiting with bated breath. Uh, Opening night was absolutely spectacular in every way, shape, and form. I have no complaints at all. Was a good show, good audience, good size audience. We all performed very well. From what I can tell, everybody in the cast and the crew seemed to be very, very happy with the way things went, which is fantastic. Personally, I'm rather happy with the way things went. My performance, personally, happy with what I put out there. Um, I didn't get as much of the butterflies as I normally do get. I was a little tired yesterday. I thought I would be doing the show well rested because I had the entire day, and I did have the entire day, and that was good. But by the time uh, that came time to go to show, I was having a little dip when I arrived at the theater rather than being all energetic and buzzing all over the place. So, when that happened, there was sort of like no room for the butterflies because there was just no excess energy to have to spare. which is kind of weird because normally I get the butterflies really, really bad. And I also sort of have this thought in my head that, how would you put it? Um, the butterflies are good because it gives you the sense that you are very concerned about your performance and you want to do well. Whereas sometimes, if you don't have the butterflies, it might mean that you're a little overconfident and then you end up making some mistakes. So I definitely did not want to be overconfident. But no, for me in that case, it was just that I did not have an excess of energy. So, hey, that happens every now and then. But everything went really well. We had a great opening night. The final bars of music weren't over yet, like before we were even coming out for bows, and we already had a standing ovation, which is pretty cool because according to the people at the Meister Singers, other than "We Will Rock You," which was the other show with the Meister Singers I was in, there's almost never a standing ovation on the opening night. And it was instant. It didn't need to be, um, it wasn't like one person got up and then another person got up and another person begrudgingly got up because someone got up. It wasn't one of those peer pressure standing ovations. It was just people like popping right out of the seat. And it's just like, oh my God, wow. So, yeah, we have a hit. We have a hit. I'm really, really excited about it. Yeah, um, uh, I don't know what to say more than that without giving too much away. Um, but like I said, there was a smoothness, and I knew a couple of weeks ago that I thought we had something special. And when we are done the show, we go back to our dressing rooms and remove a couple things really quickly. But then a lot of us will go out into the lobby to thank the people that have come. And as we were moving from the dressing room into the lobby, you could hear other people talking. They really liked the final group number. Like even we could feel it on stage. Like when as soon as we got done singing "Sit Down, You're Rockin' the Boat," there was this loud, really, really loud uproar of applause and cheering and hooting from the audience. And when we were walking back um, to the lobby area, you could hear people talking. Oh, that "Sit Down, the Rocking the Boat" was really good, wasn't it? Yeah, they took that to another level, and stuff like that. Which is again on night one. We usually expect to build up to there, but I guess we had something special earlier on, and we had been building up for quite a while. So, kids and cubs, for those of you who can't come and can't see it, um, let's maybe show you a couple of pictures. Uh, so this is our amazing band. I believe we have about an 8 to 10 piece band total, with a wonderful conductor, Kelly, who is absolutely amazing for musical theater. She seems to remember every time we're moving, every time we're talking, and fits all that, just has it all in her head. She's fantastic. As you see here, all these, all the spike tape for the sets to let us know where to put things with different colors for different times and stuff like that. Our beautiful backdrop here, New York City skyline, big band stands here. We have the band on the stage with us, integrated into the show, which is kind of neat. And this is from one of our big production numbers, Havana, and you can see yours truly right over here, giving a little swish of the hips here. Um, yeah, on this night, I think this was like 3 nights before dress rehearsal, and I actually like grabbed pants from home because we had to have like dark pants to bring them, and then I got to the theater and realized I grabbed Alex's pants and not my own. So I was swimming in them, and I had to try to find a way to cinch them so they didn't fall off. I got the right pants now. And this is part of my main outfit. As you can see, I got the hair going on here, and some bright, colorful clothes. I love my outfit. I'm hoping that they will allow me to buy it once the run is over. This is the full thing. They gave me 3 or 4 ties that I can switch depending on how I feel. But that's the whole thing. And the costume designer wanted everything to sort of, and the artist director wanted everything to sort of look like um, a 1950s New York-ish, but not a real New York, but a city that would evoke New York, that you would step into a bit of a Technicolor world. So this is when you're looking at all the outfits that we have for at least the male chorus here, the male ensemble, and these are uh, two of our supporting leads right here, Mateo and Dan, who are absolutely fantastic, and that's me right here doing my thing. And this is from our first production number of the oldest establishment in it. So yeah, we have a good little thing going on in our show, and hopefully you enjoyed a few pictures from it. And to those of you who are coming, uh, I think you are going to have, based on the audience reaction yesterday, you are going to have a really, really, really good time. Oh my God, I love that. See everybody you are so lovely in the chat. Oh my word. This Kit Linda, you look like you're going to run an illegal liquor across the border. Gotta go see my father had fedoras. I love fedoras. Kit Sharon saying I'm looking fabulous. Well, thank you. Uh, Miss Shadika saying that she loves the tie. Kit Linda telling me that I have to keep that suit. I am really going to try. I look really good. The pictures don't even do it justice. I look really, really good in it. Um, our costume designer was absolutely amazing to come up with these color palettes. Um, Kit Sharon, thank you so much for sharing in our joy. Yes, we did get a standing ovation. So now the objective is try to get one every night. If we got one on the first night, go 10 for 10. That's the goal. All right. So yes, I am feeling really good. However, I am a little tired because, well, I did not get the opening night jitters, but I did get the opening night zoomies after the show. A group of us went out to a restaurant and had a little bit of a nosh and a little bit of a drink to celebrate the opening night. We thought of doing it today, Friday, because tomorrow's a Saturday and people have more time off from work. But tomorrow, Saturday, is double show day as well. So yeah, we decided to do it last night because we'd have more time to recover. So apologies for the late start. There would have been a late start anyway, just given with the adrenaline rush and whatnot. But by the time I got to bed, it was past 3 a.m. So it was a very short night, and I will be going to bed after this. But yes, kits and cubs. Yeah. Douglas, how dare you be a little tired? ah, y- I'm a giver. That's why I'm tired. I'm a giver. But like I said, this is the fun part. 9 more shows left, and then starting November 30th at around. Well, I mean, the show finishes at 4:30, but then we have set strike, and we'll usually have a cast party or something like that. So starting Monday, I finally have part of my life back, and 20 something hours to 25 hours a week back to myself. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with all the time. Probably sleep. But yeah, I'm happy I did this. I'm really happy I did this, and there seems to be a great connection between everybody in the cast. I actually genuinely like everyone involved with the production on this one. So it makes it a joy, and that probably made it easier to get through the 2 long tech days, especially the second day when I hadn't slept out all the night before, because I'd locked myself out of the house, and I was so worried. So yeah, I think that having that genuine like prevented me from getting a little snippy or snappy on that day because they were long days and demanding days. Uh, but yeah, genuinely like everyone, and the guys in the cast have really formed a great bond. There's one, I think, on dress rehearsal night, there was one moment where we had just finished a big production number, and then there's a couple of us that remain on stage, and we're supposed to look tired and exhausted because allegedly, according to the script, we've been gambling all night, like for 24 hours straight, and we're just like exhausted. And we we all like come together and we form like this cluster, and our director doesn't like everybody in a straight line. She wants levels and lines and movement and that type of stuff. And we placed ourselves in such a position that only a group of people that had been working together for a while and who genuinely like each other and have established some type of intimacy in their friendships could be able to pull off just naturally. And we hadn't thought about it. We hadn't planned it. We just got there and we just sort of assembled, so there's an arm over something and like a hand on this and, you know, uh, you know, elbow resting on somebody else's knee and, that type of stuff. And there was just all this movement, and it's sort of like, yeah, you can't just get up there and plan that. Like you put your hand there and whatnot. It just happened organically, and that wouldn't happen with if we didn't actually genuinely like each other, and we're very supportive of each other, and everybody in the dressing rooms helping each other out and all that kind of stuff. And it's just a really positive vibe, positive little community we created. And it's not just the actors, right? Like we have 34 actors and there's about 12 band members and the conductor, and there's about 6 or 7 stagehands with props and helping with wardrobe and sets, set changes and all that kind of stuff. And then we have the sound technician, the light technician, all the people in the booth. So we're about a solid 55 people working on this. 55 to 60, all coming together, each with their own specialty, and all those elements came together. And it's like I said, all in a very positive climate. And you can tell on the stage that we really enjoy each other, and you can tell that we are really dedicated to the process, and that we want to put on a good show. And you can see us having fun together, and that brings the audience in. So it's been a very, very positive experience. And considering that I was initially told no and then got in because someone else couldn't actually fulfill the commitment, what a gift. So a lot of hard work, but very rewarding, and I'm happy I've done it. I'm still not at the point where I will be happy to have been done. I'm still having fun, but there comes a point in the run where at one point you think, okay, I've got 2 more to go, and then I can I can get my life back. But every now and then I've been in a show where I turn around and thought, you know what? Okay, I understand how some people do this 8 times a week on Broadway, like for months. You just get everything is just perfect, and that's a little bubble that you would like to keep going for some time. All right, kids and cubs, I've talked your ears off enough about my stuff, um, but I am very happy today. Let's get into the show. All right, as you know, the Prime Minister is away, United Arab Emirates, and then heading off to Johannesburg for the G20 Summit. G20 Summit at which it seems Donald Trump will not be present, which may create some opportunities for other people to focus on other priorities. According to Ashley Burke of CBC, Prime Minister Mark Carney is headed to South Africa on Friday for the G20, where there could be more space on the sidelines to advance trade talks with other countries because U.S. President Donald Trump isn't attending. A senior Canadian official told CBC News that in Johannesburg, Canada is looking at raising funds with other countries, pushing the country's critical minerals and promoting building more ad hoc group of nations. Trump is refusing to attend the G20 or send any American officials, calling it a, quote, total disgrace that South Africa is hosting the summit this year. A White House spokesperson said Thursday afternoon that the only U.S. presence would be a diplomat for a handover ceremony. The U.S. is next year's G20 chair. Oh, Lord help us all. The U.S. president continues to allege South Africa is persecuting white farmers, a claim widely disputed, including by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa. Quote, the absence of the United States removes a big center of attention from the summit, said Roland Paris, who was a senior advisor on foreign affairs to former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Without world leaders jockeying for Trump's time and attention, Paris said there's a bigger opening for Carney to meet one-on-one on the edges of the G20 with countries like Indonesia, France, the European Union, which is not a country but a bloc of countries, Germany, the UK, India, South Korea, and Mexico. It's one-stop shopping for the Prime Minister when it comes to meeting with so many countries that we're trying to develop closer relationships with and more trade, said Paris, a professor of international affairs at the University of Ottawa. Carney's agenda is focused on trying to strengthen Canada and diversify trade to become far less reliant on the U.S. American tariffs continue to pummel some Canadian sectors, and uncertainty is dragging down the economy. The government's recent budget promised to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade. A senior Canadian official told CBC News that Carney is looking at some key bilateral meetings to make substantial progress on a few files, including encouraging foreign investment in Canada. Carney plans on meeting with Qatar, which has the world's largest sovereign wealth fund that invests its oil and gas revenues globally, said the official, who CBC News has agreed not to name because they were not authorized to speak about the plans. The official said Canada also wants to talk to the EU about the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnerships, a free trade agreement between Canada and 10 other countries in the Indo-Pacific. The United States has been a key player in previous versions of the agreement, but Trump withdrew in 2017 before it could be ratified. Carney suggested in September he's part of talks to trying to get Europe Let's try that again. Carney suggested in September he's part of talks to try and get Europe more involved in this bloc. So that's that famous CETA, CPTPP sort of union or collaboration that's been bandied about, I think, probably since around May. Carney also plans on pushing Canada's work on critical minerals and emphasizing that countries could build more coalitions to work on areas they agree on, including clean technology, international finance, or critical minerals, the official said. Or I'm going to guess that's supposed to be international finance of critical minerals here, given that the initial start of the sentence was, well, Carney also plans on pushing Canada's work on critical minerals. That might be a typo here in the article. One high-profile leader Carney could meet with is Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The government continues to face questions about why it's trying to improve relations with India after the RCMP last year publicly accused agents of India's government of involvement in homicides, extortion, and threats on Canadian soil. India has denied the accusations. Just last week, the head of Canada's spy agency, Dan Rogers, suggested the problem hasn't gone away and CSIS still has to be, quote, very vigilant against the alleged threat from India. A senior Canadian official with the international trade system ruptured, Canada doesn't have the luxury of only engaging with countries where Canada is aligned on every issue. The official, who was also not authorized to speak publicly, said the Carney government is taking a, quote, clear-eyed view that it's better to work with countries like India on issues where there is agreement. Quote, there's a real attempt to reset the relationship and still try to deal with some of the issues that took it off course over the last 2 years, said Sanjay Ruparelia, the Jaroslawski Democracy Chair at Toronto Metropolitan University. One of the next steps to advance relations would be for Carney to visit India. If the two leaders meet, they could discuss a date for a future visit. But the relationship between the two countries remains fragile and could hit a rocky patch again. Evidence is expected to be made public as the Canadian criminal case into the assassination of Sikh separatist Hardeep Singh Nijjar works its way through court. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said in 2023 that there were credible allegations potentially linking in India to Nijjar's killing, a claim India denies. Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand has repeatedly defended the government's efforts to improve relations, saying public safety concerns are at the forefront of all talks with India. So there you go. Also, with the UAE, and this was something that Kit Uncover had sent me yesterday, but I didn't have time to go through live to pick out the elements. But the deal with the UAE appears to have been signed. We mentioned yesterday, and we have 2 bits on that. So this is a Dylan Robertson of the Canadian Press writing here. Prime Minister Mark Carney signed an investment protection agreement with United Arab Emirates on Thursday during a visit to Abu Dhabi that has involved limited media access as concerns grow the country's fueling ethnic violence in Sudan. Carney announced the investment pact following a meeting with the UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. The two also launched talks for a full free trade deal aimed at eventual comprehensive economic partnership agreement. Sorry, let me try that again. That wasn't a free trade deal. The two also launched talks for a full trade deal, not deal, aimed at an eventual comprehensive economic partnership agreement. The Prime Minister also met Thursday morning with Industry Minister Sultan Ahmad Al Jaber before touring a palatial mosque in Abu Dhabi. He followed that with afternoon meetings with local sovereign wealth funds and investment companies, including Mubadala, MGX, ADQ, and ADIC, ahead of a dinner hosted by the UAE's National Security Advisor. The visit comes just 1 month after the two countries signed an agreement to boost collaboration on artificial intelligence and data centers. Janice Stein, founding director of the Monk School of Global Affairs at the University of Toronto, says the UAE is becoming a leader in AI and can help Canada through both investment and innovation. On a visit to the country earlier this year, she saw extensive AI adoption in the UAE, as well as enthusiasm from government officials for Carney, a former central banker and UN envoy, to visit the country. Quote, "It is very prescient for the Prime Minister to go, and go early," Stein said in an interview Tuesday. Quote, "They know him from his previous career, and so I think this is absolutely the right decision. The UAE is using its cheap energy to power data centers similar to how Canadian firms hope to use Alberta's oil sands. Quote, it's going to be one of the powerhouses, one of the nodes in the global economy that's built around AI," Stein said of the UAE. The country has also secured a promise from U.S. President Donald Trump that it will be able to access the most advanced American chip technology, despite concerns from some U.S. officials over the extent of the Emirates cooperating with China. Former Quebec Premier Jean Charest is the co-chair of the Canada-UAE Business Council Carney is set to address on Friday. Charest told reporters in Abu Dhabi that signing an investment pact is a prelude to a trade agreement in any scenario that Canada has been in. He said a full trade agreement with the UAE should be fairly straightforward because of Carney's visit. Quote, "The only way Canada is going to have trade agreements with new regions in the world is if the Prime Minister is the one who leads it," Charest said. He noted that large UAE investors already have a stake in major Canadian infrastructure, and the UAE aims to position itself as the financial center of the entire Gulf region. Quote, "We have a lot in common because we're each in our own way a hub to the rest of the world," he said. And I want to bring you back to the previous thing that Charest said. The only way Canada is going to have trade agreements with new regions in the world is if the Prime Minister is the one who leads it. Remember that. Put a pin in that and remember that every time that Pierre complains that the Prime Minister is off traveling instead of being at home. He's doing the work that only he can do. Pierre needs to talk less, much less. On Thursday, Carney toured the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, a sprawling mosque featuring 82 domes, which claims to house the world's largest hand-knotted carpet. Carney noted the building includes materials from across the world. And I am going to show you this because I had never heard of this building and I had never seen it, and it is rather impressive. Okay. So that there, kids and cubs, is the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, or at least an image of it from the certain angle. I'm going to guess the front, but I don't know. That's an impressive building, I have to say. Architecturally, that's rather stunning. There you go. Let's see what else he said. So yes, on Thursday, Carney toured the Sheikh Zayed Grand Mosque, a sprawling mosque featuring 82 domes, which claims to house the world's largest hand-knotted carpet. Carney noted the building includes materials from across the world. He said the materials were brought together in an inspiring way and a testament to the Emirati people to have conceived, created, built, and shared this with humanity. Carney's remarks were his only words to media on Thursday, with his visit not expected to include a news conference. His Emirati hosts have barred media from the bilateral meetings that most countries make open to visiting journalists. The limited availability comes as the UAE faces growing criticism over widespread allegations it is supporting a militia in the Sudan civil war that is undertaking shocking ethnic violence, something the UAE denies. Civil war erupted between Sudan's army and the Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF, in April 2023. The paramilitary RSF succeeded the Janjaweed militia that was behind the first Darfur genocide between 2003 and 2005. Members of the Rapid Support Forces have posted multiple videos on social media of mass killings, often with ethnic taunts. The UAE has said there is no substantiated evidence that it has armed the RSF, despite a UN report saying they are, quote, credible allegations. A readout of Carney's meeting with Sheikh Mohammed did not mention Sudan, but it did name Palestine. Stein said the UAE is involved in the conflict despite its insistence to the contrary, but she noted Abu Dhabi has also made recent moves towards peace that haven't been seen on the opposite side of the civil war in Sudan. Quote, the UAE is one of the principal arms suppliers to the RSF, she said. The Rapid Support Forces have accepted a ceasefire that the Trump administration put forward, and the UAE was instrumental in that. It's not forthcoming from the military. After addressing business leaders Friday, Carney will travel to South Africa for the G20 Leaders Summit in Johannesburg. So there we go. There appears to have been a deal that is indeed signed. So more with the door open to more trade to come with regard to the UAE. And of course, it seems that we're talking to Qatar as well, both with very big sovereign wealth funds. If we're saying it crudely, the commentary from the pundit class is that Mark Carney is going where the money is, because we're going to need to attract a lot of investments. So there you go. Yesterday, we showed you an interview with Pal Johnson, the Minister of Defense of Sweden, with regard to the Saab planes, the jets that we might be looking to acquire. Yesterday on Power and Politics, there was an interview with Saab CEO Micael Johansson that you might want to check out as well. I was listening to it before going live. There wasn't a clip specifically that stood out to me. But according to the CBC, and this is Murray Brewster again, the point person on things, defense and military. Should Canada choose to fly the Swedish-built Gripen E, the country's Air Force could receive the first aircraft as quickly or perhaps even sooner than the long-awaited American-manufactured F-35, the CEO of Saab signaled on Thursday. Micael Johansson also said the defense giant is willing to set up not only an assembly factory in Canada, but a full-fledged manufacturing center and a research and development hub. He added, however, that the deal, which would include technology and intellectual property transfers, would be predicated on Canada deciding to purchase the fighter. The two go hand in hand, Johansson told CBC's Power and Politics' David Cochrane. Johansson was part of a week-long corporate economic and political blitz, which included the Swedish royal family to convince the government of Prime Minister Mark Carney to partner with the Nordic country on a host of defense and industrial initiatives, including fighter jets. The Liberal government is reviewing whether to proceed with a full order of 88 F-35 fighters from US-based Lockheed Martin. It has been suggested that Canada could accept the first batch of 16 stealth jets and then pivot to filling out the rest of their order with Saab Gripens or some other aircraft. And the thing about getting the planes in 3 years, I believe, was in response to a question about David Cochrane, stating that the life of the CF-18s is going to be over relatively quickly, and there's not very much more that we can start extending it. So could Saab start providing us with planes before we have some type of operational or capacity gap? And that was like I said, the president of the firm stating that we could probably have planes quicker than under the F-35, so that really wouldn't be a concern. Documents tabled in Parliament show the first Canadian F-35s will arrive at a U.S. Air Force base late next year, where pilots and mechanics will begin training on them. It will be 2028 before the first U.S.-made jets arrive at Canadian bases. Johansson said Canada could have its first Gripens at about the same time. Quote, we can start delivering across to Canada if they select a dual slate in 3 years' time, Johansson said. If a Saab facility is stood up, the first Canadian manufactured Gripens would be rolling off the assembly line in roughly between 3 and 5 years, depending on the setup, he said. During that build-up phase, Johansson reiterated that as many as 9,000 to 10,000 jobs could be created in Canada. The company established an assembly facility in Brazil following that country's decision to buy the Gripen. There were apparently promises of thousands of jobs, not dissimilar to the hype surrounding a possible Canadian deal. Located at facilities in Gavio Peixoto, Brazil, the fighter jet line in that country employs about 200 people, according to Saab press release from the 2023 inauguration of the line. Johansson said the first jet there is just completing assembly. Quote, it will ramp up from now and onwards, he said, so we are at an early stage now. It is one of the reasons Canadian political parties are taking the eye-popping job numbers with a grain of salt. Quote, I want to believe that at some point in time, every government, Quebec, Canada, will start telling all those companies, if you promise something, you must deliver it, Bloc Québécois leader Yves-François Blanchet said earlier this week. It has long been speculated that Montreal-based Bombardier would be the big beneficiary if Saab were to start assembling Gripens in Canada. The two companies are already involved in a partnership to produce the Global Eye surveillance and early warning plane. On Wednesday, Sweden's defense minister suggested that the assembly of Gripen fighter jets in Canada might not be predicated on the country actually placing an order for jets. Micael Johansson said Sweden is facing a defense capacity crunch and an order for as many as 150 Gripen Es from Ukraine would stretch existing production lines too far. Johansson, however, was unequivocal on Tuesday, saying it doesn't make sense to go to the trouble of establishing another facility and transferring technology without an order from Canada. So there you have that. A little bit of different messages that we're getting from the defense minister than the president of the company. Of course, the president of the company would have a bias towards Canada having to buy the planes in order to get the contract. The Swedish defense minister seems to think that that is not necessary by virtue of the fact that we already do have some collaboration, and we are, in fact, a respected aeronautics center on on the global stage. So we'll see what will develop from that. But this is definitely was definitely a full court press from the Swedes, the royal family, the defense minister, the deputy prime minister, and the president of the company, among everybody else that they brought. And there were the three specific days of news on our flagship political podcasts having to do with this. So from the PR side and the La Grande Séduction, the Grand Seduction side of this type of project, this type of initiative, the Swedes organized a very, very, very competent and effective campaign in terms of getting their message out. And now we'll just wait and see if there are any developments when it comes to actually signing some contracts with regard to that. I'm getting a feeling from the talk that Canadians really want to do this, and given that Ambassador Dickhead popped up all over again and is claiming, yeah, if you do that, we don't really want you to have anything, but if you try to get it from someone else, that's going to make us mad, and you might not get the things from us that you want, the things that you're not getting already, by the way. Um, My sense is, and I'm hearing this from a lot of pundits as well, is that the fact that he's out there saying, you know, future deals with the United States may be contingent on this, and he's still talking about the Ontario ad, gives me the impression that these two particular things landed pretty hard. It was a punch right clear on the nose, and they felt it because we've already moved on from the ad, right? We put it out there. Some of us who liked it, some of us who didn't like it, and then there was the fallout. Some of us blamed Doug, but public opinion polling seems to be giving Doug a free pass on this. There was a little uh, bit of soap opera drama between who approved it and who didn't approve it, and all that kind of stuff. And finally came out. The story is that the prime minister saw the ad but didn't approve it. Advised Doug not to do it. Doug did it anyway. Um, and you know then Doug ran his mouth and talked too much, stating that the prime minister had seen it, and uh, finally, the story ended up being that yes, the prime minister did see it, told Doug not to do it. Doug decided to do it anyway. Not sure why Doug afterwards decided to say that the prime minister saw it to thus create the impression that he got permission for it, and then that needing to be clarified. Um, Doug sometimes freelances and is not particularly good at it, to say. But yeah, and then now we have the suspension of trade talks and the threat of an extra 10% tariff. Um, we'll see what happens with that. But that the United States still seems to be sore about that. It's like, "How dare you come into our country and meddle?" And it's like, that video that you guys recommended that I look at by Todd Maffin, saying, all the times that the United States has meddled in Canada because, no matter what term they put on it, deeper integration or cooperation or whatnot, basically what the United States demands is acquiescence, and when we don't do it, we get punished somehow or we get retaliated against. So, and that this is not a new dance from the United States. It's been going on for a long time. I think it went back all the way down to like the 1940s or something, when the United States had actually sent people here to monitor our politicians and spy on our union leaders and that type of stuff, because apparently we're a threat to the United States for some reason. And I've always been viewed as some type of threat or um, you know, uh, we're going to be outwardly friendly and good neighbors and that type of stuff, and cousins and all that kind of stuff. But when we want you to do something, you need to do it or else, has been sort of the attitude here. So, yeah, lots of incidents of meddling throughout the years from the United States. So, the fact that they're complaining about this and the fact that they're trying to now link our decision on maybe wanting to do something that's in our best interest with regards to fighter jets, that's probably not in the U.S. best interests, um, is probably an indication that these things that we're talking about out loud and things that we're doing out in public are indeed bothering them. But then again, all I'm saying is that we've done everything that's been expected of us and more, and it doesn't seem to have yielded much benefit. So I believe that there's probably a little more. "Oh, what's that? You say we can't do that? Oh, yeah, that's nice. Watch us." Thanks for taking time to share your opinion. Um, uh, we will give your opinion all the consideration that it is due. Thank you. uh, I'm getting the impression that a lot of people in Canada have kind of hit that point. Just shut up. Stop pretending that there's a trade deal to be had. There's no trade deal to be had. So if you're not going to give it up, I'm sorry, but don't expect us. We may have agreed to monogamy, but we didn't agree to celibacy. So, United States, if you're not going to put out, we're going to go get it somewhere else. Pardon my crude language, but that's pretty much right the deal here. So, yeah, we're doing us, and the United States doesn't seem like it. And while the United States complain and threaten, and say all it wants that there are stuff that we have that they don't, we don't have anything that they need. We have a lot that they need. We have a lot that they need, and uh, there's only so many times that they can tell us, "Well, no, we're not going to give you that, but you can't go get it anywhere else either." Before we turn around and say, "Well, fuck that." It's like, a little Janet Jackson. "What have you done for us lately? Ooh, yeah. Mm, Right? There's just United States, if you're gonna start crossing your fingers and saying you can't do that, well, you can't do that. You better start giving us something to make it well worth our while for us not to do that, and something other threats to keep us in line. We're not particularly impressed with that. It's like it's time for some honey because the vinegar has not been working. So unless you're gonna cross our palm with a little sugar, we don't want to hear it. Pretty much. We'll come to your meetings. We'll sit in your room. We'll entertain you. We'll indulge you, but we're just going to keep on doing our thing because you just never follow through. And there's only so long you can deal with a case of arrested development before you decide to choose yourself. Right? If you're a human being and you've had more than one relationship in your lifetime, odds are probably one of your relationships somewhere along the way was with someone who just did not want to grow up. Oh, it's fun for a while, but at some point you got to pay those bills, right? At some point, you got to keep that roof over your head and food in your belly. You can't be playtime all the time. At some point, you need to grow up. At some point, you need to also give. You can't just take all the time. So we'll see what happens. But Canada, I think, is starting to. I think we always understood this, but it's not our style to aggressively and assertively use leverage. We tend to do things, more kindly and diplomatically, and we tried to get through other routes, and we only try to, pull those cards if that we absolutely need to. And in this case, we need to. 'Cause, the United States, again, watching us hanging out at the big international singles bar and watching us have so many suitors express interest in us is might be making them uncomfortable because they might be realizing that um, we have options. And not only may they be realizing that we have options, but they may see us realizing that we have way more options than we ever thought we had because, well, you know, after a long time of being told that, you know, we could not do better than the United States, um, we're learning that we can. And when that happens, power comes with that. Again, not as much power as the United States has over us. It's a superpower, but power. We're not completely helpless. We're not weak, and we're most definitely not broken. All right. Let's keep moving on, kids and cubs, because there is more news. Yesterday, we talked about Chrystia Freeland um, being named to take on the administration of the Rhodes Trust. It would appear that the job would require her to move to Oxford for the role, but Chrystia Freeland has not announced plans to resign as a member of Parliament as of yet, which is really interesting. But if she does, I'm not sure if there's going to be some type of remote, or it's just that she hasn't announced it yet. Just because she hasn't announced it. But yes, there might be a by-election at some point then coming up in her writing, because I'm sure she's going to still keep the position for being the envoy for Ukraine reconstruction. But if she's taking this job here, she will definitely have to move. This is according to Kyle Duggan of the Canadian Press. Liberal MP Chrystia Freeland will move to Oxford, England to take on a new position next summer administering the Rhodes Trust, the educational charity confirmed on Thursday. The charity is famous for its prestigious Rhodes Scholarship, which offers students from around the world a chance to study at the University of Oxford. It announced Wednesday evening that Freeland has been appointed the CEO of the Rhodes Trust and warden of the Rhodes House, a building on the university's campus starting July 1st. Spokesperson Babette Littlemore confirmed by phone Freeland will move to Oxford for the role. Freeland herself has not announced plans to resign as a member of Parliament, though she has said she does not intend to run in the next election. Freeland's office did not respond to calls or emails Thursday. Her local Liberal Writing Association for University Rosedale in Toronto did not have information related to her new role, presumed departure, or preparations for an eventual candidate nomination race for a by-election. Neither the Prime Minister's office nor the House of Commons Speaker's office had further information. The Rhodes Trust press release that announced her appointment includes a quote from Freeland saying she's honored to take on the role with her alma mater. Quote, having personally benefited from a Rhodes Scholarship, I know how deeply transformative and influential it can be on the lives and futures of our scholars. The experience helped shape my international outlook and played a defining role in guiding my subsequent career. Freeland earned a degree in Slavonic Studies at the University of Oxford in the early 1990s. The former finance minister and deputy prime minister was in the running for the Liberal Party leadership earlier this year and ran a scrappy campaign that positioned her early on as the candidate who would bring the most aggressive fight to U.S. President Donald Trump in his trade war against Canada. She ultimately lost to Mark Carney, who became prime minister in March. Freeland served dual roles in Carney's cabinet as internal trade minister and transport minister and led a push to reduce internal trade barriers in Canada. She stepped down from her cabinet roles in September to take on a special role representing the Carney government on matters dealing with the reconstruction of Ukraine. Freeland developed a reputation as one of the staunchest defenders of Ukraine in its war against Russia and led an international push to seize Russian assets for the purpose of rebuilding Ukraine. She had posted a letter on social media mid-September that stated she would leave cabinet and would not seek re-election. Since then, she has kept a low profile and largely remained out of the news. Freeland worked as a journalist in Kyiv and Moscow for the Financial Times, The Economist, and The Washington Post, and speaks Ukrainian and Russian. She returned to Canada and worked as an editor for the Globe and Mail in the late 1990s and eventually for Reuters. She authored books about income disparity and the rise of oligarchs in post-Soviet countries. The five-time MP was first elected to the House of Commons in 2013, 2 years before Justin Trudeau became Prime Minister when he won a majority mandate in 2015. Freeland entered cabinet immediately, first in trade, then in foreign affairs, and was a driving force in Canadian politics throughout the past decade. She helped save an endangered trade deal with the European Union and steered Canada through the renegotiation of the Continental Trade Pact during Trump's first term in the White House. Trump named her deputy prime minister in late 2019, and she became the first woman appointed as a federal finance minister in 2020. In that role, she oversaw historic emergency spending during COVID-19 pandemic. On the day she was set to present a major fiscal update in December 2024, Freeland instead resigned and publicly attacked Trudeau on fiscal policy measures, a key event that led to Trudeau's resignation on January 6th. She is married to New York Times journalist Graham Bowley. The couple has 2 daughters and a son. So there you have it, Chrystia Freeland. Looking like she will be moving and that there will be a by-election in University Rosedale at some point, probably maybe in the spring of next year. So there you have that. And in that piece of news, there was some talk about trade amongst the provinces, and it seems that there have been some developments with regard to that as well. The provinces, I think it was yesterday or 2 days ago, came out with some news that they had indeed arrived at a deal for trade, interprovincial trade, that removed a lot of barriers. Unfortunately, it didn't remove all the barriers as had been hoped for and had been requested by the prime minister when he was talking about it. There was part for the federal government to do, and there was a part for the provinces to do as well. But 2 days ago, according to Emily Fagan at CBC, there's an agreement between all Canadian provinces, territories, and the federal government signed today, that was 2 days ago, to drop interprovincial trade barriers on many goods except food and alcohol starting in December. It comes as part of an effort to support businesses with more trade opportunities in light of U.S. tariffs. BC Minister of Jobs and Economic Growth Ravi Kahlon said the agreement signed in Yellowknife on Wednesday is the outcome of a nationwide push led by BC to reduce domestic trade barriers. Okay, I'm not sure that BC was leading that, but it's interesting spin. Quote, this agreement makes it easier for goods that meet the rules in one province or territory to be sold across Canada without extra approvals, labels, or testing, he said at an announcement in Victoria. Quote, we are one agreement, one market, and unlimited opportunity across the country. When it goes into effect, the agreement will cover thousands of products, including clothing, toys, vehicles, health technology, and industrial products. Micael hopes to expand this to include food and alcohol and other things initially exempt from the agreement, like financial services, but said they are regulated differently and will take time to sort out. The business community has long called for a simple principle. If a product is approved for sale in one province, it should be approved in all provinces, said Brigitte Anderson, President and CEO of the Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. Quote, while today is worth celebrating, it is important to encourage the momentum towards further integration and opportunity domestically, especially as we look towards food and alcohol as well as improving labor mobility. James Donaldson, CEO of the BC Food and Beverage Association, said provinces have different safety standards around food, particularly meats, so he wasn't surprised that it may take longer to lower trade barriers on it. Quote, I think it's progress because we've been talking about this for some time, so it's nice to see them actually taking some action. Maybe a side benefit of some of the tariff threats that Canada's faced is that it's kind of forcing the provinces to work together in a more constructive way. Donaldson wants the country to determine a unified set of food safety standards to make it easier makes it easier to lower trade barriers. He also hopes alcohol will soon be included in expanded interprovincial trade opportunities. BC has signed a memorandum of understanding to support direct-to-consumer alcohol sales with other provinces. However, Micael, senior economist with the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, says the agreement amounts to, quote, political theater aimed at addressing barriers that have little impact on sectors beyond food and alcohol. Earlier this year, research co-authored by Lee on interprovincial trade found that removing trade barriers will have little effect on Canada's economy, but deregulation could hurt public interest measures like environmental and consumer protections. Quote, they seized on this kind of bogus issue of trade barriers and are basically painting themselves as the knights in shining armor that are going to go slay this dragon. But the reality is there's no dragon. The real barriers for business and trading across Canada are distance and transportation costs. So, yes, some advancement on that. Again, there's also been lots of statements that claims made before that this could generate up to $200 billion in additional economic activity had been rather inflated, because that would suggest that every single trade barrier has been removed and everything has been absolutely maximized. And that may not be exactly where it is that we are going. 4 days ago, so 2 days before that, the government of Canada had announced that it had done its part with regard to removing its barriers to interprovincial trade and mobility, stating here, the government of Canada is building one Canadian economy instead of 13 by removing federal barriers to internal trade and labor mobility. This will create good-paying jobs, allow businesses to expand and enhance consumer choice, ultimately bolstering our economic resilience and building a stronger and more self-reliant economy. On November 17th, the Honorable Dominic LeBlanc, President of the King's Privy Council for Canada and Minister responsible for Canada-U.S. Trade, Intergovernmental Affairs, Internal Trade, and One Canadian Economy, that's a mouthful, announced the upcoming release of the finalized regulations stemming from the free trade and labor mobility in Canada. The Act and its associated regulations achieve the following objectives. A good produced, used, or distributed in line with the requirements of a province or territory will be recognized as meeting comparable federal requirements. A service provided in line with the requirements of a province or territory will be recognized as meeting comparable federal requirements. And a worker licensed or certified by a province or territory will be able to work in a comparable occupation in federal jurisdiction. This removes duplication and red tape across the country, strengthening our economy for Canadian workers, businesses, and consumers. To protect the health, safety, and security of Canadians, the regulations also list exceptions to the Act, including food regulated under the Safe Food for Canadians Act. Canada has one of the safest food safety regimes in the world, and maintaining it is vital to the health and safety of our citizens and to our trade diversification goals. With support from stakeholders, the Government of Canada is addressing barriers to trade in agriculture and agri-food products through targeted efforts, including helping businesses obtain a federal food license to trade with Canada and abroad. The Act and regulations will come into force on January 1st, 2025. A user guide will be available in December 2025 to help businesses and industries better understand the changes. The federal government is also working with provinces and territories through First Ministers and the Committee on Internal Trade, the CIT, to further eliminate barriers to trade and labor mobility. The committee is currently focused on advancing mutual recognition for consumer goods, negotiating an interprovincial trade agreement on trucking, implementing a 30-day service standard, and reducing onerous administrative requirements for labor mobility applicants. At the upcoming CIT meeting on November 19th in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, the Government of Canada will continue to advance these initiatives. That's a meeting, of course, that has already taken place because this was written on the 17th. So there you have that. So the federal government claims that it has taken care of its part. The provincial governments have done as much as they can at this point. I think it was in reporter Ashley Burke, if I'm not mistaken, on CBC News had mentioned that the document had about 45 pages of individual exceptions. And when I was talking about that $200 billion number earlier. When we're talking about eliminating everything, some of the things would be sort of labeling and language requirements for things that are sold in Quebec, which the province of Quebec would never agree to. So that's why people are saying that 200 billion number may have been exaggerated or inflated because it represents a scenario that we already know going into it that not everybody would agree to. But if that was the case, yes, then a potential of up to $200 billion. Um, Another interesting bit of news here with regard to projects. I'm not sure that this is listed as a project, or maybe it's on the secondary list, the list of projects with potential that were announced in the first round. But according to CBC News, Manitoba is putting up $51 million in new funding to help upgrade the Hudson Bay Railway line, and federal and provincial government officials met in Winnipeg on Sunday to work towards the possibility of expanding the Port of Churchill. Arctic Gateway Arctic Gateway Group, a partnership of dozens of First Nations and Hudson Bay communities that owns the port, said in a news release that the new money would pay for engineering work required to allow construction on the Northern Rail Line to bring it up to Class 1 status, which means it could accommodate heavier loads. The cash will also pay for new storage and loading systems to handle critical minerals, potash, and Arctic supplies at the Port of Churchill, as well as additional ships and equipment to handle more marine traffic, Arctic Gateway said. Prime Minister Mark Carney and Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew met in the Premier's office Sunday after the federal and provincial governments reaffirmed their commitment to the port expansion in a joint statement on Sunday. However, Ottawa's official list of major projects of national importance still does not include the port expansion. In September, the Port of Churchill Plus was included under the Major Projects Office Transformative Strategies list, while the Prime Minister announced 5 other projects would move forward. Carney announced 6 more major projects on Thursday, describing the Churchill Port expansion as still requiring more development. Standing in Kinew's office on Sunday, Carney said the Port of Churchill opens up, quote, huge host of opportunities in northern Manitoba, including possibilities for energy, agriculture, critical minerals, and beyond. Kinew said the expansion in Churchill remains a, quote, major priority for Manitoba as he passed a football. Winnipeg was hosting the Grey Cup Championship. To Carney, saying the ball is in his hands. Speaking in French, Carney described the project as large, ambitious, and involving many steps. According to Kinew's office, the project involves a port expansion of some sort, an upgraded Hudson Bay Railway, an all-weather road to Churchill, and perhaps other northern Manitoba destinations, the presence of icebreakers in Hudson Bay, and an energy corridor that could involve the transport of or transmission of liquefied natural gas, crude oil, natural gas, electricity, or hydrogen, the latter most likely in the form of ammonia. With the new $51 million in funding, the province has spent $87.5 million on the project. The federal government announced in March that it is contributing $175 million. Kinew said the engineering work could also result in a realignment of the railway, something he said will be discussed with the Major Projects Office. Quote, we're going to be talking about things like the potential route and what is the best way to get products to the coast. So a lot of tires being kicked, a lot of studying going on right now, Kinew told reporters after his meeting with Carney. Kinew said he and Carney plan to meet 4 times a year about the project. The Premier said more detailed plans and strategy for the port expansion are expected in the spring of 2026. So that is some positive news. There's been a lot of talk about that throughout my lifetime, and it's nice to see that things might indeed be going ahead here. All right. What else do we have for you today? There was some economic data I remember mentioned in the chat yesterday that I wanted to bring up, but I don't think I had properly noted that, unfortunately. So I'm going to skip over that for the moment. I had made a note of it, but I don't remember at the top of my head where I put that note. Um, I'd have to go back and look at the chat from yesterday's um, show to figure that out again. But there was some really, there was some, I think, some rather positive economic data that came out for Canada over the past few days, uh, other than the inflation data, which was very positive for us here. All right. The next thing I didn't, well, you know what? Let's take a moment here. And since we're about halfway through the show, and take some time to go visit with Mr. Grizzly, who has a growl for us. So he had a couple of thoughts on the upheaval within the Conservative Party of Canada, what with Chris d'Entremont leaving. And wanted to share that with you all, kids and cubs. So here for your pleasure, a bit of Grizzly time.
Okay, so got a few things I want to talk about. And to begin with, I was walking home today listening to the Bill Kelly podcast because it's short and sweet and it fits my commute from the office walk to the train and then the train to the last station and then the walk home. It fits into that time period quite nicely. It's about 30 minutes-ish. And I happen to know what he has to say. I enjoy his podcast, and hopefully someday we'll get a chance to have a conversation with Mr. Kelly. This is what I'm hoping. Anyway, what I want to talk about today is something that struck me and fired me up and got me a little bit, well, I was angry. I was angry. And justifiably so. You see, the thing is this. Walking home, listening to the podcast, and he brought up a few subjects that I thought I should address because what the heck? One of the things that I thought was interesting was the fact that, okay, we're all well aware of the recent departure from the Conservative Party of Canada. Their MP, Chris d'Entremont, across the floor and is now a member of the Liberal Party. And he did it. He said, the Conservative Party of Canada feels like a frat house. It's how to harm people. It's not how to actually improve the country. And we've been saying the same thing for years. These are not serious people. They do not want to govern. They want to rule over you. They don't give a damn about you. Pierre Poilievre, Andrew Scheer, Melissa Lantsman, they just want to rule you. They have no desire to govern. They have no care in the world when it comes to making this a better country. They will tell you what you want to hear if you are a busy person and only have time to listen to their miniature sound bites. So here's a quick sound bite for you. When Chris d'Entremont crossed the floor, the Conservative Party reaction, and I've got some points here. Conservative officials and MPs reacted with surprise, anger, calling the move a betrayal, in quotations, of its constituents and the party. A spokesman for the office of the Leader of the Opposition, the OLO, stated d'Entremont was, in quotation, a liar after willfully deceiving his voters, friends, and colleagues because he was upset he didn't get his coveted deputy speaker role. Conservative House Leader and current shitbag Andrew Scheer accused d'Entremont of acting on personal grievances, in quotations, relating to not being re-elected as Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. Deputy Conservative Leader sellout Melissa Lantsman, sellout of the century, alleged d'Entremont made a choice, in quotes, not to represent the constituents who elected him to fight inflation, not to fight lower grocery prices. That's in quotation as well. Other Conservative MPs called him a coward and expressed deep disappointment in his decision, especially since he was the only Conservative MP representing Nova Scotia. Chris D'Entremont's stated reasons, of course, as we well know, is he expressed belief in a better direction for his party and the country and supported Prime Minister Mark Carney's new budget, which he felt addressed local priorities in infrastructure, fisheries, and agriculture. D'Entremont also criticized the Conservative caucus environment, characterizing it as a frat house rather than a serious political party. Now, let's compare and contrast that to September 2018, when, at the time, Liberal MP Leona Alsov crossed the floor from the Liberal parties to the Conservatives. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered a measured public response stating that it was normal, albeit unfortunate, part of the political system and not the be-all, end-all. His response, acceptance of the system. Trudeau acknowledged that floor crossing is something we, in quotation marks, we allow for in our system. Not the be-all, end-all. He downplayed the significance of her departure, indicating it did not signal a larger problem within the caucus. Personal well wishes. He wished her well in her decision. He stated that the government would just stay focused on the things that we're focused on doing for Canadians. He dismissed suggestions that other Liberal MPs might follow suit, emphasizing that his caucus was united and fired up. In a conversation with Maclean's magazine, he further reflected on her as a thoughtful former candidate and noted, it can be an indicator of larger things. It can be just what it is. Compare and contrast. One treated it like a elder statesman or statesperson, however you want to call it. One individual. And then several individuals screamed bloody murder like it was the end of, I don't know, humanity. I don't know what the way they went on, it was just the absolute worst thing that ever could have happened in the history of ever. And I just, really? That's your response? There's more video that I have that I'm going to show you and share with you at a later time and date. But some of the responses I saw from members of Parliament who are supposed to be representative of Canadian citizens and the world on a larger stage, acting like absolute children. Remember, we have been saying for years on this show, the Conservative Party of Canada is just a reform party under another name. They do not wish to govern. They do not wish to make life better for the average Canadian. They will pad the pockets of their wealthy donor class. They will screw you into the ground, and they will punch down at every opportunity. This is the party that voted against $10 a day daycare. They voted against a national dental program. They voted against feeding school children lunches. And when faced with the biggest calamity of our time, the first pandemic in a century, what did their leader in waiting, because he wasn't the leader at the time, Pierre Poilievre, have to say when asked about what kind of a program would the Conservatives bring forth to help the citizens who are suddenly without work? And his stupid response that only an ignorant asshole would say, we'll give you tax cuts. We're conservatives. We don't believe in these big government programs. Explain to me, Skippy, when I was laid off and had no work and no income, how a fucking tax cut was going to help feed me and keep a roof over my goddamn head. These are not good people. They don't give a shit about you. This has been your Grizzly Growl. I will see you soon. Bye.
And there you have it, kids and cubs. Mr. Grizzly bringing us some information, and that was information I did stumble across in that how the Liberals and how the Conservatives handle floor crossings when they happen, and yeah, the immaturity that took place on the conservative side, seemingly proving everything that Chris D'Entremont was saying was actually correct, actually making his case for him here. And again, Mr. Grizzly at the end making the point again that the conservatives' utter lack of creativity and imagination, that the tax cuts is always the solution for any problem whatsoever. And Mr. Grizzly reminding us again in this K-shaped economy that we have, where the people that do not own things, the people who are not voting for governments because they're afraid of losing what they have, but people instead who are voting for government because they would like to be able to access the things that the people are afraid to lose have. Um, uh, Different political parties are speaking to these groups. The people that have stuff and don't want to lose it are being spoken to the Liberals, and the people that don't have stuff and would like to acquire it are being spoken to by the Conservatives at the moment. And that's why the offer from both parties are guilty of this, but they're not offering. They don't. There doesn't seem to be a lot on the table being offered to the other group. In fact, I believe I was looking at some data that came from. I saw it on CPAC, but it's not. It's clearly not CPAC data because it comes from a polling that's just being reported here. Uh, but the budget itself didn't get grades of support from Canadians when they saw it. Now, there could be a reason for that here, and I might we'll discuss it a little bit. But I wanted to bring you a little here from CPAC's Primetime Politics, giving the indication, because this is something that the Liberals have to pay attention to. Um, because we're looking at polls, right, a lot, and we're looking at the top line numbers with the parties, and those are relatively close. And we've seen some movement, particularly with Angus Reid. We've seen, I think, about a 4 or 5 point flip over the last little bit that actually puts Angus Reid in favor of the Liberals slightly rather than the Conservatives, which that in and of itself is rather interesting. But then we look at the net favorability numbers, and we looked at numbers from Abacus and Angus Reid, the two polling companies that seem to lean more on the Conservative side, and showing that Mark Carney has an impressively sizable lead over Pierre Poilievre in the minds of Canadians as the best option for prime minister. And then we looked at other data suggesting that, for example, Canadians no longer view the United States as being a friendly nation in any way, shape, or form to us. Um, in fact, Canada actually views China as a more friendly nation. Now, both of them are still viewed as hostile nations to Canada, but China is being viewed as less hostile to Canada than is the United States at the moment. And that's according to Canadian public opinion. Saw this in, this is from a little bit ago, from end of October here. But it says here, new research suggests that a minority of Canadians now consider the United States to be the country's uh, Yes, a minority of Canadians now consider the United States to be the country's friends, except for Conservative Party supporters, more than half of whom still view the US as Canada's friend. Data from the Environics Institute shared exclusively with the Toronto Star shows that 36% of Canadians currently view the United States as a friend, compared to 60% at the end of 2020 and 89% in 2013, and that 27% of Canadians presently view the United States as an enemy, a number that stood at 11% in 2020 and as low as 1% in 2013. But when the results were broken down by federal voting intention, the Research Institute found that 55% of Conservative Party supporters still consider the U.S. a friend to Canada, compared to 26% and 29% of Liberals and NDP supporters, respectively. By contrast, just 15% of Conservatives considered the U.S. an enemy, while 33% of Liberal supporters and 36% of NDP supporters felt that way. Quote, "It's just so stark when only a minority of Canadians now see the United States as actually a friend of our country. And to just contemplate that after decades and decades of closer and closer relations, it's just, I think, a really stark way to capture how much has changed and how fast," said Andrew Parkin, the Institute's executive director. Yeah. So, yeah, not the best data. And so for the conservatives, the more that they behave like the Republican Party, the more that Pierre behaves like Trump, the less it is going to find um, that party appealing, because we're not reacting well to the United States at the moment. We don't particularly care for what it is that they're doing. So that as well doesn't help them. And then, of course, concern with the Canada-US trade relationship mind issue. This one here, if we're looking at Nanos polling, the most issues to Canada: Trump-US relations, 17%; jobs in the economy, 17%. Them two are pretty much related. What happens to the jobs in our economy is very much affected by the Trump-US relationship. So, like, there's 34% of Canadians that view these two things as the most important things. And, well, Polyev doesn't seem to have much of an answer for those things. Then it's inflation and healthcare at 8% each, immigration at 7, environment at 4, debt and deficit at 4, housing at 3, education at 2, and crime, which Pierre keeps on beating the drum, but only at 1%. On preferred prime minister polling, Nanos also has a similar split, with Carney at 50% and Polyev at 28. That's a 22-point spread. Right, things are not doing well for him specifically. Um, so yeah, uh, they need to come up with some type of better offer, and they have a leader that can't seem to take in critical information or constructive criticism or any type of critique, and can't appear to pivot at the same time. So I'm not sure where this party is going, to be totally honest, kits and cubs. Um, but all these data points are not particularly helpful to the leader here. Um, and I got sidelined by bringing that data on the how we're viewing the United States from my overall point where I was going. I kind of forgot. I kind of forgot where I was going with it. So sorry. Um, so, uh, so, oh yes, yes, I remember. So we have all this data here that is not great for the Conservative Party of Canada. Then we've had some inflation data that was showing, at least for the last month, and again, it's just 1 month and it could be a blip, but that wages were growing faster than food inflation. Food inflation decreased a little bit. Shelter inflation has decreased for something like the ninth or 11th month in a row, somewhere in around that gap. So the combination of those three things actually make a perfect month on the issue of affordability. So if that could continue, that could affect conservative fortunes. But here, when we're talking about how the budget was well received or not by Canadians, um, there's a bit of a dichotomy here, and that's why I'm saying that liberals need to pay attention. That even though uh, Canada still is not looking at the United States well, and that doesn't help Polyev, that Canada is uh, oh my God, how do I say that? Uh, Basically, the confluence of all those data points together, that the Trump relationship is still top of mind, that their relationship with the United States is still top of mind, that Canadians are worried about jobs in the economy, and the number one determinant of what's happening to that appears to be Trump. as well. When you put all those things together, it looks like you have some good conditions for the Liberals to be coasting for a good while yet, because none of these things are going to change relatively soon. Trump is not going to suddenly start becoming a choir boy, right? And he's not going to stop trying to find new ways to try to upend us, unless there starts to be some pressure from the inside. He starts feeling the squeeze, like on steel and aluminum. If it starts getting too much for the producers within the United States or manufacturers within the United States to bear, then Trump might come down and then announce some type of magnanimous policy decision on tariffs with regard to steel and aluminum. But it's not going to be because he likes us. It's going to be because he's going to try to be saving his own bacon here. He's getting too many calls coming from inside the house, and we just have to buy enough time to be able to wait that out for that to happen. But in this budget, there does not seem to be, at least outwardly, as a flagship element, something out there in the window with regard to affordability that Canadians can look to. And I mentioned in a previous show that one of the reasons for this might be that the Prime Minister is waiting for next year to see what happens with the CUSMA agreement, to see if Trump, whether or not, pulls the rug out from under us on that one. And at that time, we would really need those supports. So why deplete that type of funding now, while there are people, yes, that are having difficulty? We're still having some jobs data and inflation data and whatnot that shows that we still have things under control. Some economic growth data that shows that we have things under control somewhat, or that we're weathering the worst of it without going into a recession type of thing. So why spend those tens of billions of dollars now when we might need them next year if Trump decides to pull a move on us? So this could be it's just a simple matter of keeping the powder dry. And that may be one of the reasons that the budget is getting some low marks from Canadians, in that they don't see a lot of it in it for them to bring them some immediate relief. A lot of this is long-term planning, but still, right, they see Prime Minister Mark Carney with a 22-point favorability or such over Pierre Poilievre. So they know that this is something that we need to do, and that we're doing the right thing, and we're probably doing it in the right way. But it also means that the reality is that the money that we could be spending now to make life more affordable for Canadians is money that we are spending instead in diversifying our economy and reorienting it, which is very necessary. And Canadians are accepting of it and think that it is the right plan by virtue of the fact that they still support Mark Carney, but they're still not happy about it, right? It's one of these situations. Yes, we need to take this medicine, we understand, but you can't make me like it. So let's take a little look at how the budget seems to be being received by Canadians in terms of public opinion.
The budget now, as the federal government tabled its budget implementation bill this afternoon. But unlike the drama of last night's confidence vote on adopting the budget itself, today's proceedings were quick and without much controversy.
OK, adopted. Je déclare la motion adoptée avec dissidence.
So that here is when one of the kids told me, because I was looking for the budget vote and said that the budget had been voted on and accepted on division. That's what happened here. That's the sort of end of the vote. You see the speaker basically having asked for, we don't see him having asked for the yeas and the nays, but he asked for the yeas and the nays, and based on the volume and whatnot, the number of people he saw responding, he had decided that it was passing, and that's why there was no recorded vote.
Adopted with some dissent.
And with that, the implementation bill will now make its way through the House and be debated in the weeks to come. As for the governing Liberals, well, they now have the job of selling their budget to Canadians, which, according to Leger, may not be that easy. Initial reaction to Carney's first budget has been muted at best, with only 30% of Canadians giving it a positive review, 37% giving it a negative review, and 33% uncertain of what it will mean. Well, with more on the impressions of this budget, we're now joined by Andrew Enns, Executive Vice President for the polling and marketing firm Leger. Andrew, thank you for the time.
Great to be joining you, Michael.
So, we began this with the general impression that you found with this budget. And as we saw, it was not all that great. But it seems the picture for the government does get better when you ask Canadians to share their impressions on specific priorities. Can you walk us through that?
Well, sure. As you touched on, the overall impressions of the budget were pretty modest, but we did drill down into a few of the specific I would say, the highlights of the budget, and there you do find certainly some positive things to build on. Obviously, things with respect to reducing the immigration numbers was very popular. Some things with respect to housing, things on defense spending had some good support, well over 50% in terms of some of those specific measures. And I think that certainly gives some specific topics for the government to build upon. Obviously, the budget's now passed, so they can turn their attention to getting out and communicating the budget probably a little more vigorously. Yeah, and I'll get to that in a second. But when you talk about communicating this budget to Canadians, I also want to break down a little bit of the regional response here, because when it comes to this budget, the government may encounter some challenges selling it to the regions right across the country, and to that, I'll get to Alberta and Saskatchewan in a bit. But in the areas of this country, in the regions of this country where the Liberals built their government, talk to us about the impressions of the budget and the challenge that this government has there. Well, I think the one thing I'll say sort of interesting about the budget is that there's no massive holes regionally with respect to budget support, nor is there any obvious areas in the country where this budget was really well received. I think honestly, when you think of Atlantic Canada and Ontario, for example, key markets for this for this government, the support on the economy, on defense, reducing immigration, they've got good support there to build upon. But it's not that overall picture. It's still pretty lukewarm and modest in those places, and I think they've got their work to do in those areas. In terms of getting out and selling the budget a bit. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to Alberta and Saskatchewan? Well, what I'll say about Alberta and Saskatchewan, I mean, they're probably a little bit lower in terms of support for the budget. The support for the budget does break along partisan lines, and in Alberta and Saskatchewan in particular, the Conservatives have a stronger sort of vote preference, and so that does color a little bit of the support. But I'll certainly go back to the last few budgets of Justin Trudeau in 2023-24. Like, those were very poorly received in Saskatchewan. Yes, partisanship played a role, but just generally, like, the tone of those budgets just did not sort of sit well with those residents in those provinces. I think Mr. Carney, Prime Minister Carney, does have a little bit of a better, does come at this with a bit of a better position than his predecessor in Alberta and Saskatchewan. I think there's, and I've said this before, I believe that there's still a measure of the benefit of the doubt that is being afforded Mr. Carney, and I think Albertans and Saskatchewan residents are prepared to see, can he deliver on some of these things? Will he follow through, for example, on the immigration promise? Will he deliver on some of those major projects, for example, that were also a big aspect of this budget? So I think he can go into those provinces, not, I would say, with don't expect standing ovations everywhere where you go, but I think he should get an audience that's prepared to listen to him. You're prepared to listen. So if you were to find a path forward for this government, how do they sell this budget? Well, I think honestly, I think Canadians were pretty clear. We ran a poll. They didn't want an election. They want to actually see some action by this government that was just elected, literally a few months ago. I think for Mr. Carney and the Liberal government, I think the best path forward for them is to start rolling up their sleeves and starting to work on elements in this budget. Find some of those things that are more on the short term. Reducing the size of the civil service was another area that was fairly popular with respect to how Canadians felt about it. Let's see some action there in terms of making some progress. They announced a lot of what was in this budget was announced in the weeks leading up to the actual budget day. So I think for Canadians, I think hearing more announcements of what they plan to do probably is not as welcome news as opposed to some actual tangible progress on some of these areas.
Andrew, thank you for this. I really appreciate the time.
So there you have it, kids and cubs. A little bit of information on how the budget appears to be landing, at least according to public opinion analysis firm Leger. So yeah, you could see there's a not big enthusiasm and not in any particular region for it either. But again, if you couple that with the numbers of support for the Prime Minister, it seems like Canadians are accepting the fact that it is medicine that they have to take. There's also been discussions from other panelists that I've heard of that they're thinking that maybe this is a similar situation to Chrystia Martin when the first budget, when they were talking about us having like a Canadian peso and all that type of stuff, and we had to make some changes, wasn't jarringly transformational or generational as a lot of people would have claimed was the case. But it did lay the groundwork for a lot of the things that needed to be done. And over the next year, they did the education piece with Canadians, getting them to buy in. And that was the second budget, the one that built on the first one, that was really had the big cuts in transfers to the provinces and ended up being considered generational, but like not in the uplifting sense. We're building all these things for the next generation. Is that we need to cut all these things in order to be able to save a decent economy for the next generation. But they did do the education work and they did get us to tighten our belts. But the thing that they did right is that once they did achieve the goal of balancing the budget, they did promise that they were going to spend whatever benefit we had, 1/3 on tax cuts or reducing and making life more affordable, rewarding us for our hard work, 1/3 on investment in new programs because there's a lot that had been starved, and 1/3 on paying down actual debt. And they did follow through on that for several years. And then Stephen Harper blew it all up by coming in and deciding that he was going to cut 2% off the GST and just basically liquidated the entire surplus. And then we started going into deficit. And then we had the 2008 crash, of which we had removed our buffer and all of that type of stuff. And the Harper government ended up adding about $200 billion to our national debt over its term, greater than $200 billion to our national debt over its term. While generating a second mini recession because they did not engineer the soft landing, and while ruining our reputation with international partners because all the G7 nations had agreed that they would spend 2% of GDP on stimulus when the 2008 crash hit, and Canada never got around to actually doing that. And then Canada removed its stimulus early, which caused the second recession, against the advice of every good economist, and despite the fact that we had a prime minister who claimed he was a trained economist. Apparently didn't see the crash coming, and then did not understand that removing stimulus too early could cause a second recession. And also did not realize that making a commitment to international partners that you would join them in spending at least 2% of GDP on stimulus and not doing that, well, how that affects international relationships afterwards. Maybe that had something to do with the reason for which Harper was not able to get the free trade deal with Europe over the finish line. Maybe there was some sour grapes with regard to that. You never know how these things manifest later on, right? So there you have it. Not much enthusiasm for the budget because principally, and not principally, but I would speculate principally because there were no baubles and shiny things, and there were no new surprises in it. The government said there would be no surprises, and a lot of things had been telegraphed beforehand. But again, there seems to be recognition as well that this is something that we need to do. And like the Prime Minister said, we're going to be doing less of the things that we want to do in order that we can focus on doing the things that we must do. And even though we agree that the stuff that we must do, we don't have to enjoy the fact that we're not getting to do the things that we would like to do instead. So yeah, interesting set of numbers here with regard to that. I saw in the chat that there was a story with regard to the Prime Minister in the United Arab Emirates, and it seems that there is a dollar value to some of the discussions he has had here. This is according to the Canadian press. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Ottawa is working on a $1 billion project aimed at expanding critical minerals processing capacity in Canada while securing the equivalent of, now listen to this, $70 billion in investment from the United Arab Emirates. The announcements come as Carney concluded a visit to Abu Dhabi, which focused heavily on trade amid concerns about the war in Sudan. Quote, I'm pleased that an agreement valued at over $1 billion is in the process of being finalized, Carney said in a Friday morning speech to the Canada-UAE Business Council. Quote, it will expand critical minerals processing capacity in Canada, creating jobs, boosting the long-term supply of minerals essential to energy technologies and advanced manufacturing. More on that soon, he said. Carney said that the new project is a matter of economic growth and human development. Quote, we are a global leader in AI, in quantum, and life sciences, and we realize it's time to begin to commercialize these strengths for the benefit of humanity, Carney said. The Prime Minister personally invited Emirati investors to visit him in Canada to help spur more major projects after announcing this week the signing of an investment protection pact with the launch of trade negotiations. Quote, we welcome UAE investors to visit Canada. I will personally host them to explore investment in Canada's transformative projects. To that end, Carney's office said Friday that the UAE had agreed to invest $50 billion US in Canada. The UAE Foreign Ministry had not published a notice of the deal, but media reporting suggests the funding will include energy, AI, logistics, mining, and other strategic industries. Carney's office said the funding is part of a bilateral investment framework agreement and did not indicate what timeline under which the dollars would flow. His office says the funding is a vote of confidence in the Canadian economy, which has been suffering from the U.S. trade war and productivity issues. In his speech Friday, Carney said he is, quote, very confident that Canada and the UAE can more than double trade in less than a decade. He said Canada and the Gulf nations are aligned as trading nations and energy superpowers who are going green. Quote, to the uninitiated, Canada and the UAE can appear as different as snow and sand, yet we're deeply, deeply aligned, he told investors. The level of penetration usage of artificial intelligence is the highest in the UAE, and it's one of the largest and most sophisticated sets of investors in the world, Carney told reporters. Carney said that will be a major focus of a trade mission to the UAE next year, along with energy and agriculture. He said the countries are starting a new chapter following his visit, the first by a sitting Canadian Prime Minister since 1983. He also told reporters that he raised the Sudan civil war with UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, whose government denies accusations it is fueling ethnic violence in that country. Carney did not specifically, there's a verb missing here, so I'm going to guess it's mention. Carney did not specifically mention whether he believes the UAE government or the human rights groups that accuse it of supporting the Rapid Support Forces militia, but he said the two talked about U.S. President Donald Trump's attempt at peace in Sudan. Quote, we did discuss the situation in Sudan, Carney said, adding that this centered on the so-called Quad process, where the United States, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Egypt are working on, quote, establishing a ceasefire and peace consistent with the initiative of President Trump. Carney's speech to investors came shortly before he was set to board a flight to Johannesburg for the G20 Leaders Summit. The Trump administration says it will have no senior American officials present in South Africa, which it accuses of allowing anti-white violence to take place. The South African government says Trump's views do not reflect crime statistics or reality. Canada has listed 5 priorities for the G20 Summit: improving critical mineral supply chains, using AI for sustainable development, preventing wildfires and disasters, reforming global development funding and debt, and advancing gender equality through economic growth. So there you have it, kids and cubs. Again, Pierre's go-to lament of where are the deals, where are the things signed is not going to last very long if the Prime Minister is getting these agreements at this rate, at this clip, and is traveling so much in order to be able to make these deals happen, deals that only he can make happen, and is also agreeing to host people when they come to Canada. And then extending those invitations to try and drum up that business and establish those business relationships. So again, some positive news coming from the Prime Minister's trips and his travels. One other piece of news I saw today in the grab bag that has me a little concerned. Now, this is from the Conservatives, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. But according to Kate McKenna, the Conservatives are decrying a push by the federal Liberals to retroactively amend a law which some lawyers believe is a way to avoid paying out veterans over a federal error that may be responsible for overcharging them thousands of dollars. The Carney government's Budget Implementation Act contains an amendment that it says, quote, clarifies the formula used to calculate long-term care costs for veterans. Lawyers in a proposed class action contend the federal government has been overcharging veterans for long-term care due to a decades-long miscalculation. The amendment, if passed, would be retroactive and potentially spell the end of litigation intended to reimburse affected veterans and their families. Quote, I think what it really boils down to is the government made a mistake. They should have acknowledged they made a mistake instead of sneakily putting something buried on page 375 on the Budget Implementation Act, Conservative Veterans Affairs critic Blake Richards. In October 2024, CBC News reported that the federal government made an error interpreting its own law. Sources with ties to the department had said the issue was known internally and never addressed. Though there are some exceptions, veterans in the department's long-term care program are required to cover only the costs of their accommodations and meals. That cost is supposed to be set at a level equal to the lowest cost of room and board in the least expensive province, with federal law defining province to include territories. But Veterans Affairs was interpreting the definition of province to exclude territories, even though the Northwest Territories had the cheapest rate, meaning veterans may have been overcharged thousands of dollars annually. The federal government is seeking to retroactively amend the law to define provinces as excluding territories, essentially legislating the error into law, according to lawyers representing veterans in a proposed class action suit. And if that is indeed the case of what's going on, this is not okay. The budget will have to work its way through a minority parliament before being passed, and Richard says he's open to amending it to remove the section proposing this change. If it is there, remove it. We agree. Quote, there's certainly an option for sure. We'll be opposing anything that would harm our veterans, he said. Yeah, don't wrap yourself in that flag, though. We know what you did to veterans when you were in power. A spokesperson for Finance Minister François-Philippe Champagne said the amendments, quote, clarify existing methodology used to calculate benefits and that the government is entitled to make such changes. Yes, your government is entitled to make changes and they do clarify, but they still screw over veterans, sir. It's nice to clarify, but if the result of the clarification is that veterans get screwed over, then it's probably not a clarification that we need in the way that you're intending to do it. Quote, while there is a general presumption that legislation only applies to future events, this presumption can be displaced if there is clear legislative intent for the law to apply to past events, said the spokesperson John Fragos in a statement on Wednesday. So yes, I will be keeping my eye out for that. And this here is, again, as the budget goes through the process in committee, as we mentioned yesterday, there might be lots of attempts by the Conservatives, the Bloc Québécois together, because there are no NDP or Greens on committee because they do not have party status, to try to rewrite the budget in many ways through amendments. But again, not all amendments, because they come from Conservatives, are bad. And if this is indeed in that law, it should go. If the government made an error and overcharged, particularly veterans, then it's not for the government to say, oh, that error we made, we didn't intend that way. We intended something else, so we're going to go back and fix it now. Because if they go back and fix it, that can create a situation where the government is demanding that the veteran repay that which was overcharged. If they would do it and say that nobody has to repay, it would still suck in the sense that the veterans would be getting the lesser of the options under the law as it is currently written. The Liberals claim to be requiring clarification, but that's bad enough. But it's not as bad as giving them less now and having them repay, but we are overcharged because you made an error. So there are two things to look for here: whether or not they will make the change, which will give them the less attractive option, one, for the future, and two, if they do make that change, whether or not they will be demanding repayment of the past overcharge. So we will keep our eyes focused on that because I find that concerning. Again, my personal view is that you just don't mess with veterans. You just don't. And that doesn't mean necessarily give them everything that they want. And there's no limit to what the public purse is. But you got to do right by them. And if you screw up, you need to eat that. You just need to eat that. All right. Let's see what else if we have anything else. I think we might be coming close to the end of the show. Oh yes, this one too. I wanted to talk about this a few days ago, and it slipped my mind. Um, but we had talked a few times about this so-called Lost Canadians legislation, and it seems that the situation has been fixed in law. According to David Baxter of the Canadian Press, quote, the Lost Canadians legislation, which aims to fix Canada's unconstitutional citizenship by dissent rules, passed in the Senate Wednesday and received royal assent Thursday afternoon. The term refers to people who were born outside of the country to Canadian parents who were also born in another country. In 2009, the federal government changed the law so that Canadians born abroad could only pass down their citizenship if their child was born in Canada, but that was deemed unconstitutional by the Ontario Superior Court in December 2023. The legislation proposed Canadian citizenship could be passed down to people born abroad beyond the first generation if the parents spent a cumulative 3 years in Canada before the child's birth or adoption. Saskatchewan Senator David Arnott argued the bill unfairly applies a substantial connection test to inter-country adoptees when it comes to passing down citizenship. This is a legal term that applies to adopted children who were born abroad and raised in Canada by Canadian parents. Arnott said the bill uses the general term international adoption, which can include inter-country adoptees. He said these children go through a rigorous immigration process before their adoption in Canada is finalized. Arnott said that includes provincial and territorial approval, anti-trafficking screens, foreign state approval, federal citizenship reviews, and other measures. Quote, inter-country adoptees must be treated the same as domestic adoptees. It is a requirement of the Hague Convention that inter-country adoptees have the same rights and treatments as in-country adoptees. Another way to say this is that because domestic adoptees don't have substantial connection test, neither should inter-country adoptees. Arnott did not try to amend the law because the court has set a deadline for the law to be enacted by January 20th, but he urged the immigration minister to make the change in the future. Immigration lawyers Sujit Chaudhry and Maureen Silkoff have been retained for a potential charter challenge on behalf of inter-country adoptees to argue they should not be treated differently than domestically adopted children. Chaudhry said that the potential rights violation exists with internationally adopted children who receive Canadian citizenship by grant when their Canadian parents are bringing them home. Quote, the concern is that they are required to complete the requirements for the substantial connection test as adults, if they are abroad and have children abroad, whereas a domestic adoptee doesn't need to meet that test, Chaudhry said. So that's a form of discrimination that's prohibited by Section 15 of the Charter and also inconsistent with Canada's international treaty obligations. Chaudhry said he would prefer to see a legislative solution to this issue instead of having to resort to a court challenge. Both Ontario Liberal MP Nate Erskine-Smith and BC NDP MP Jenny Kwan attempted to introduce amendments to clarify the adoption rules, but both were unsuccessful. When the bill was still before the House of Commons, Conservative and Bloc Québécois members of the Immigration Committee tried to amend the legislation to state that the 3-year period in the substantial connection test needed to take place within 5 consecutive years. However, that amendment was removed by the Liberal and NDP MPs before the bill was sent to the Senate. Quebec Conservative Senator Leo Housakos attempted to bring that amendment back in the Senate, but it was rejected. So there you go. The situation appears to have been resolved. So that is an important thing to mention and to celebrate. That we will now no longer have any lost Canadians. All right. I believe that's everything I have for you today. I think so. Yes, indeed. All right. Kids and Cubs, that's the end of our episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really appreciate it when you do. We really do. And of course, when you say why it is our content resonates with you, that also helps us a lot because that's advertising that we cannot buy. So thank you so very much for that. Kids and Cubs, if you would like us to help you because you might be on the go and not able to watch the show live, hey, don't worry about that. Thanks to the Ray Girl. She has sponsored our pod page. That's podpage.com/the True North Eager Beaver with a hyphen between each one of those words. And when you click on subscribe or scan that QR code to go there and then click on subscribe, when we have something fresh off the podcast bandwidth, it comes directly to you. And that way we are portable. You can take us with you and go and take on your day. Now, if you would like to help us, Kits and Cubs, you can do that by going down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, and the QR code that just appeared in the corner will bring you there. Kits, Elaine, and Cassie will certainly approve of you smashing with our buttons. Like, share, and subscribe. Give them a little tickle. You know we ain't fickle, baby. Our numbers go up. That makes us happy, and it helps us with the algorithm. So thank you very much for all of your support. And if you would like to support us in yet other ways, because we do incur some financial costs to bring this show to you, and we would definitely appreciate your help with that so that we may break even this year, this QR code that appeared in the top corner will bring you to the Emergency Hydration Fund here at the Beaver Lodge, also known as our tip jar, where you can contribute and help to keep your favorite beaver nice and moist. Yum, yum, yum. Because a moist beaver is a very, very, very happy beaver, especially a beaver who's singing a lot on stage. We need to keep the vocal cords nice and hydrated. Very important. So if you would like to support not only the show, but support the arts, wink, see what I did there? A little contribution to the Eager Beaver Lodge Emergency Hydration Fund would be greatly appreciated. Thank you for your enthusiastic expressions of encouragement. They mean the world to us. Because democracy is something that you do, Kids and Cubs, we have those petitions for you. We will mention them again. Petition 6821 to encourage members of the House of Commons to pass a law that would change our foreign ownership laws for media such that media would be by Canadians for Canadians and in the best interest of Canadians. Please, if you have not signed that one yet, do so. We would really appreciate. That's 6821, I believe. Yes, E-6821. And we have 6,241 signatures to date on that one. And there's only 6 more days to sign the petition that would encourage House of Commons to present some laws that would make it unattractive for certain politicians to deliberately and intentionally spread misinformation. So this is House of Commons petition E-6679, 41,318 signatures to date, 6 more days to try to get that number up as high as possible. And we appreciate your support with that. Finally, as we've been mentioning a lot over the past few days, Kids and Cubs, if you happen to be living on Prince Edward Island, especially in District 2 on Ponal, there is a by-election on December 8th in which the leader of the Provincial Liberal Party, Robert Mitchell, will be running to try and secure his seat. Please do not let your friends do democracy alone. Plan your vote. Today at 2 p.m. is the final moment, 2 p.m. local time, I'm going to guess, the final moment to get your candidate nomination in if you would like to be a candidate. Advance polls will take place on November 29th, December 1st, and December 5th, with from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. with the actual voting day, as mentioned earlier, on December 8th. Words of wisdom, Kids and Cubs. If ever you have a little thing that you're doing that's not one of these things about life that's just ongoing, like paying your mortgage or whatnot, but an actual little project, Like for example, me with musical theater, or let's say you're a choral singer, or let's say you knit and you crochet and you decided to take on a sweater or a blanket or a baby blanket or something of the sort. But once you finish that, once you've accomplished that, um, take a moment to not just say, okay, done and move on, but take a moment to just stand there and appreciate that which you have worked so hard to create. Appreciate the fact that you actually have an achievement. You took on something that had a distinct beginning, middle, and end, and you saw it through. And as a result of that, there was something beautiful or useful or appreciated by others that was created and put into the universe. And that happened is all your fault. And that's a good thing. So celebrate your successes, celebrate your achievements. Take the time to celebrate when you accomplish something. Even if it's, it doesn't necessarily have to be like taking a whole night and going out like this, even though there are certain things for which you should absolutely do that. But sometimes it's just, sitting down and taking a breath and going, you know what? I did that. Yay me. And maybe a little treat of some kind to go along with it. I'm all for treats. So, but whatever that is for you, treat yourself. Maybe it's just an afternoon with a good book or a nice cup of tea. Maybe it's a soak in a hot bath. Maybe it's a nice walk. Maybe it's a nice piece of cake. Cake, yum. But yes, celebrate your achievements, celebrate your successes. It really matters. And it helps make a life a little bit brighter. All right, kids and cubs, a tough world out there. So please be kind to and gentle with yourself. And kids and cubs, now at the count of 3, can I get you please saying, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, 2, 3. Let me hear you. Oh, kids and cubs. Oh, that is beautifully said. Such intonation, even a little bit of reverb in the back there. How can I deny you when you ask so nicely? Here you go. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, kids and cubs, little bit of news from Canadians who make us proud. At the Women's World Championships in beach volleyball, unfortunately, the Canadian duo of Melissa Humana Paredes and Brandy Wilkinson, medalists at the last Olympics, bowed out in the quarterfinal round to the very powerful Brazilians, Salgado and Rebecca, in 3 sets. And that is the end of their run at the World Championships for this year, unfortunately. At the Australian Open in badminton, Canadian badminton player Michelle Lee, L-I, and not Michelle L-E-E, for those of us who are older and remember the soap opera Knots Landing. But who is rather she doesn't get a lot of press, but rather highly ranked in the world. I believe she is top 20 world in badminton, Edmonton is playing the Australian Open and has advanced to the semi-final of that tournament, where she will be taking on an Indonesian player in the next round. So playing very well. Michelle Lee is number 17th in the world, but she will be taking on the number 7 player in the world and the semifinals, which will be. But cheers for that. And finally, for those of you who, like me, are a big fan of the sport because you love to hurry hard, well, are coming up here. And this is probably one of the best curling tournaments on the planet. Rocks will soon be ready to roll at the Canadian Curling Trials in Halifax, November 22nd. 8 women's teams and 8 men's teams will take to the pebbled ice with the single objective of booking their tickets to Milano Cortina 2026. Team Canada's spots in the women's and men's Olympic tournaments were secured this past spring based on the combined placements from the respective 2024 and 2025 World Curling Championships. Team Homan won back-to-back women's world titles for Canada, while Team Jacobs captured bronze at the Men's Worlds this year after Team Gushue claimed silver the year before. For the first time, Canadian athletes will be permitted to compete in both mixed doubles and 4-player curling at the Olympic Games. That means Jocelyn Peterman and Brett Gallant, who were officially nominated to Team Canada in May after winning the Canadian mixed doubles trials in January, will be in Halifax with their respective teams, Peterman on Team Laws and Gallant on Team Jacobs. So there you go. The qualified women's teams for the curling trials are Team Rachel Holman from Ottawa, Team Carrie Einerson from Gimli, Manitoba, Team Kayla Skurlik from Calgary, Alberta, Team Caitlin Laws from Winnipeg, Team Kate Cameron, also from Winnipeg, Team Christina Black from Halifax, Team Corn Brown from Kamloops, and Team Selena Sturmey from Edmonton. As mentioned, Team Homan has won 2 straight World Women's titles during the 2023-24 and 2024-25 seasons. They won a total of 142 games and took only 15 losses. They also got off to a strong start this season, winning the first 2 Grand Slam of curling events. Skip Rachel Homan and second Emma Miskew are the members of that team with previous Olympic experience, having competed together in the women's event at Pyeongchang in 2018. Team Einerson won 4 straight national titles from 2020 to 2023 and were the runners-up to Team Homan at the 2025 Tournament of Hearts. Skip Carrie Einerson led her team to bronze medals at the World Championships in 2022 and 2023. Team Laws also features 2 Olympians, Caitlin Laws and Jocelyn Peterman, who played together in the women's event at Beijing 2022. Laws is a 2-time Olympic champion, having won gold in the women's events at Sochi in 2014 and gold in mixed doubles at Pyeongchang in 2018, which was the first ever gold medal offered in mixed doubles and curling in Olympic history. For the Canadian men, Team Brad Gushue is in. Team Brad Jacobs is also in. Team Matt Deathstone is in. They're from St. John's, Newfoundland, Calgary, and Winnipeg, respectively. Team Mike McEwen from Saskatoon is in. Team Kevin Cooey from Calgary is in. Team Ryan Kleiter from Saskatoon is in. Team John Epping from Sudbury is in. And Team Jordan McDonald from Winnipeg is in. So 2 teams from Winnipeg, both in the men's and women's field. Of course, Winnipeg, a very important hotbed of curling within Canada. Team Gushue features 3 members of the team that won bronze in the men's event in Beijing 2022, Skip Brad Gushue, third Mark Nichols, and lead Jeff Walker. Gushue and Nichols are also Olympic gold medalists from the last time the Winter Games were held in Italy at Turin in 2006. Brad Jacobs was the skip of the team that won gold at Sochi 2014. His current teammates are also familiar with playing on Olympic ice. Third Mark Kennedy and lead Ben Hebert won gold together in Vancouver 2010, while second Brett Gallant was a bronze medalist at Beijing 2022. Team Dunstone were the runners-up at the 2025 Brier. The front-end duo brothers EJ and Ryan Harden were members of the Olympic gold medal winning team at Sochi, with 2014 playing with Brad Jacobs at the time. Each tournament will start with a round robin among all 8 teams. The 3 teams will advance to the playoffs. The first place team will get a bye directly to the final, while the second and third place teams face off in the semifinal to see who will move on. And the round robin will begin at 2 p.m. Atlantic time on Saturday, November 22nd. The men will begin play that evening at 7 p.m. So the women will start first and then the men. So there you go. And TSN will have the exclusive broadcast coverage of every draw of the Canadian curling trials for those who are looking forward to watch it. And like I said, probably the most high caliber curling tournament on the planet, probably even higher than the World Championships or the Olympics. Just the tournament to get the right to represent Canada at because a lot of these teams, top 8 teams on either side on any given day, could probably medal at the World Championships. We have an incredible amount of depth in this country. So this for those who love curling, this is the tournament to watch, the Olympic qualifiers. And for those who maybe not be as familiar, this might be a good one to start with if you want to actually see some of the best shot making that is out there. All right, that's all I've got for you today, kids and cubs. Amour et bisous. Lots of love. Have a beaverific weekend. Wish me continued broken legs as we have 4 more shows between now and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. before I finally get a couple of days rest. And hopefully I will be able to be with you on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, at least next week at regular time rather than a delayed time. Once again, I thank you for your patience, your accommodation, and your understanding during this period when start times are a little much later than usual, just given the very short amount of time that I have for sleep between the time I get home and the time that the podcast is supposed to start. We have 1 more week of this, and then I will try to get back on a more regular schedule. But until then, I do thank you for your indulgence and your patience. All right, kids and cubs, and of course, your support for my artistic endeavors that are not implicated with the show. So yeah, the fact that I have a life outside of this and that you guys are wonderfully supportive of this means the world to me. And that I get to share it with you also means the world to me, and that you're willing to share in my joy. So thank you for all of that. Have a beaverific weekend. I am gone. Bye-bye.